What's up, guys? Calvin here with Rebounds, and today we're talking about the 2020 NBA Draft. It's about a month away, a little less than that now, coming up on November 18th. And I really wanted to just highlight particularly the second round from this draft. This particular draft is going to be historic for a lot of reasons, very intriguing. And I think that's mainly due to the big challenges faced this year by both the prospects as well as GMs and scouts. Obviously, with a shortened season, particularly no NCAA tournament, makes it very difficult for a lot of these guys who don't get to play on the national stage very often to showcase their talents. That coupled with limited availability for workouts, no draft combine, and on top of that, no real class standouts in this year's group is going to make it very difficult for GMs to kind of figure out who are the guys that they want to go with, either in the first or second round. We're going to mainly focus on the second round today because I think that with there being so much emphasis on culture change for Sacramento this year, you can really make a big difference if you find the right guys in the second round who are going to work harder. They have the chips on their shoulders because they have a lot to prove. They have to make the team. And if you fill out the bottom half of the roster with those type of guys, it has a trickle up effect on your main rotation players, your starters, where everybody's going to come into practice every day and work extra hard. They're going to give it all defensively, which has been a big area of concern for Sacramento in years past, most recent years past. So with that being said, it's pretty obvious that quality second-round picks are hard to come by. Those diamonds in the rough like Manu Ginobili, Isaiah Thomas don't come around very often. From 2003 to 2013, there were 330 players drafted in the second round. 86 of them, or 26%, failed to even make the roster of the team that drafted them. So when looking at what makes a quality pick in the second round, I think you have to, again, focus on guys who are going to bring high energy every day in practice. They're, for Sacramento specifically, going to be defensive-minded guys, rebounding, the hustle effort type plays that the Kings have been missing over the past few years. And this is a golden opportunity for Monte McNair, who just put together his first staff. He brought in some guys that we're really excited about, have scouting backgrounds, and have done very well, particularly in the second round of the draft. So I think there's a lot of room for success and growth here for this draft. The Kings pick 4 total picks in the draft this year. They have the 12th overall selection in the first round, and then they have 3 in the second round picks: 35, which they acquired from Detroit, 43, and 52, which they acquired from Houston. So that being said, let's look at what I think are the particular areas of need for the Kings to be focusing on in the draft. Number 1, they need a 3-and-D wing player. This is a guy who's going to come in and contribute right away. Probably not going to be a starter, but going to play a lot of minutes. I would prefer them to use the 12th overall pick on one of those guys. There are a few that I think are going to be available in that range, and if you're interested in learning more on that, I've got 3 articles written up on railrebounds.com that focus on that 3-and-D wing player. My second area of need for the Kings would be a backup point guard. I'm not convinced that Corey Joseph is the answer. I think that there's a bunch of point guards who are going to be available late in this draft who would really benefit from playing behind a guy like De'Aaron Fox. And so if the Kings could find a way to trade Corey Joseph, get that $12 million salary off the books, and bring in a new rookie in the second round, they're going to win in both ways, in that they can really reduce the overall cap hit to the total roster and also bring along a guy that they can develop. Another area of need, I would be looking for a big man, somebody who's going to be a potential roster filler. We don't know whether Harry Giles or Alex Len are going to be brought back. There's still some question as to whether Jabari Parker will opt in on the last year of his deal. So there might be some big holes left on that front line. And then finally, just continuing to round out the overall depth of the roster with some wing players. And again, primarily guys who are defensive minded, effort type guys, high energy guys. Those are the if the Kings had a perfect draft, I think they would hit all four of those key areas. So the first group of people that I'm going to talk about, these are guys who are late first round, early second round projections, people who, if they fall to 35 and 43 in the draft, I think would be great fits for Sacramento. The first one is Trey Jones, point guard from Duke. High profile player. He has a brother, Tyus Jones, who also played at Duke and was drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves a few years ago. I think Trey is going to turn out to be a better overall player. I love Trey's defensive ability and his playmaking ability. He can play with pace. He's not nearly as fast as De'Aaron Fox, but he can push the ball in transition, look for those guys getting out on the floor, running ahead. But defensively is where he really stands out. He averaged almost 2 steals a game last year, and he is great as an on-ball defender and an off-ball defender. One of those guys who can really take an individual player out of the offense by denying them the ball completely. So I think he makes a lot of sense to fit into that backup point guard role. Concerns for him are his overall shooting and shot selection. Really not a great mid-range shooter and not great finishing at the rim, but he does have the ability to play in the pick and roll, and his overall playmaking, I think, will make up for some of those shooting deficiencies while he works on his shot as he becomes a better pro. He did show a really, really good increase in his three-point shooting overall. From his freshman to sophomore year, he increased his overall three-point percentage from 26 to 36%, which is a pretty good increase. He needs to work on not leaning into that shot a little too much. But again, playing with patience and poise, and he does he performs really well in the clutch too. Anybody who watched the Duke at North Carolina game last year, they were trailing for most of the game. Last few minutes, Vernon Carey Jr. fouls out, so most of the offensive responsibility falls on Trey. He ended up leading them all the way back, including a miraculous intentional missed free throw to recover his own rebound and hit a shot to tie the game and send it into overtime. So I think Trey, if he's available at number 35, easy slam dunk pick for the Kings. Next guy is Robert Woodard II. He's a swingman from Mississippi State, super athletic with great length. And again, defense is by far his best attribute. He is a 7'1" wingspan, standing at 6'7", so he can really get in the passing lanes and make entry passes into the post difficult. He's very explosive, great rebounder, and runs the floor well. So playing alongside guys like De'Aaron Fox, and if Trey Jones is there as well, he will fit in perfectly. Another guy who really increased his three-point percentage a lot from his freshman to sophomore year. He shot 42% from three last season at Mississippi State. Very high release point on his shot. He didn't really attempt that many threes a game. It's a little over 2 per game. But I think as a spot-up shooter within a set half-court offense, he can be counted on to get the three off and hit it with consistency. He struggles when he has to put the ball on the floor and create for himself, which I don't think coming in as a second unit player in the NBA, he won't be asked to do too much offensively, so he can really fit into his role, which is playing defense, getting rebounds, and getting out in transition and running the floor. Then next guy up we want to talk about is Xavier Tillman. He's a big man from Michigan State, a little bit undersized for a center in the pros. He's 6'8", but I think that he could transition into the power forward position pretty easily. He's got good footwork, and again, effort plays and defensive minded. These are his most best attributes. So another person that would fit in really well coming off the bench for Sacramento. He averaged 10 rebounds a game to go along with 2 blocks and a little over 1 steal a game, which for a big guy is a really good number to have. Shows that his defensive IQ is up there. He plays the passing lanes well. His shot form is pretty decent. I see him being able to transition into a guy like Patrick Patterson, who you can count on to get in the corner and hit that spot up corner three as he continues to develop that shot. But this guy is always the first on the floor for a loose ball. He's usually in the right position defensively. And for a guy who's not very explosive or athletic and also a little bit undersized, to still average 2 blocks a game tells me that his timing is excellent. He reads the offensive player very well and is able to stay in front and position himself perfectly to get that block over and over again. A lot of turnovers for a guy who doesn't have the ball or isn't counted on to really run the offense a lot. He had 2 turnovers a game last year, so definitely going to have to work on his seeing the floor, but he is good in the pick and roll, great as a rim runner, and I think he would really benefit from playing behind a guy like Rashawn Holmes, learning from him. So if the Kings were able to get any or all 3 of those players, I think that they would have a very, very successful draft. Obviously, there's a lot of different scenarios, trades. You really don't know who's going to go where. As we already mentioned, this draft is super, super hard to predict kind of how it's going to play out, whether it's the first or second round. So this next group of players are going to be guys who I think might not fit the Kings system quite as well, but they would be players that I'd be okay with them reaching for as in these later picks like 43 and 52 if guys like Trey Jones and Xavier Tillman are already off the board. One guy to keep an eye on is Reggie Perry. He also is from Mississippi State. Very, very athletic big man. Really, really killed it for USA basketball 2 summers ago. Averaged 17 points and 10 rebounds a game last year to go along with 1.2 blocks. Great shooting motion and can really break people down off the dribble for a guy his size, which is really, really impressive. What he really struggles with is his lateral quickness and defensive IQ. So again, that is not something that I'm looking for the Kings, but this guy has lots of potential offensively. I think he could be a more athletic LaMarcus Aldridge in the pros. Another guy that's out there, probably one of the most intriguing prospects in this year's draft, is Marcus Howard. 4-year starter at Marquette, led the nation in scoring last year at basically 28 points a game. 3-level scorer, one of the most prolific scorers in recent college basketball history, really. I think the stat that stands out the most for me is he shot 42% from 3 for his career, and that's averaging almost 8 attempts a game. Pretty staggering number. That's really like a Steph Curry type player. Not saying he's going to be the same type of player as Steph in the pros. He, again, is an undersized guard, 5'11", but really uses his quickness well and plays extremely well in the pick and roll. He's almost impossible to defend because he has a very quick release. He can get that 3 off if you're going to go underneath the screen. And if you try to go over the top, he'll break you down, get it switched onto that bigger player, bigger defender, and be able to get it into the lane where he uses the floater with ease. But he is a defensive liability out there. He's going to struggle a lot more in the pros than he did in college. He really needs a solid team defense around him. But just this guy's scoring ability alone, if he's available at 52 and you've already got some of these other key areas of need filled, I think he would be a player that you could take a reach on. Paul Reed is another guy who I'm very, very intrigued by. 6'9" forward from DePaul. His stat line alone is pretty impressive. 15 points a game, almost 11 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2.5 blocks a game last year. The overall level of competition that he played might not be considered some of the highest, but when you watch this guy play, I think he's going to be a really good pro. super, super long, has the ability to switch onto smaller defenders, very quick hands. So he's constantly in the passing lanes as well as deflecting balls right out of guys' hands when he's playing on the ball. Great help defender, rim protector. His areas of need to improve upon are going to be his shooting mechanics overall. I like his mid-range shot. It seems pretty smooth overall. However, when he steps out beyond the arc, he tends to lean back into his jump shot and has a hitch at the top of it. So assuming he can smooth that out and even get into the low 30s percentage-wise from three, I think this guy is going to have a really, really productive pro career. Another wing player that I really like is Jordan Nwora, and this guy's from Louisville. Very solid defender and very solid three-point shooter. If Robert Woodard is already off the board, I'd be very happy with the Kings taking this guy at 43. He shot 40% from three for his career, but very, very solid defender, like I said, and a great rebounder for a guy his size. Averaged almost 8 rebounds a game at 6'5", 6'6". And then another guy to just kind of keep in mind is Cassius Winston. Cassius is a high-profile player from Michigan State, four-year guy. Shot 43% from three for his career. He can shoot lights out. Very good decision maker with the ball. Knows how to run an offense. Explosiveness and athleticism are where he really struggles. I would be much happier with the Kings taking a guy like Trey Jones. But if he's already off the board, I think Cassius is a pretty safe bet late in the second round at point guard. So again, 2020 draft is about 3 weeks away. It's really, really an exciting time here for the Kings' new front office. I'm very, very interested to see what Monty McNair's group is going to do here and who are the guys that they're really targeting. All of that aside, it'll still be interesting to see, do they make any moves? Do they try to move up or move down? There's a lot of intrigue surrounding this year's draft, and I hope that the Kings are able to have a successful one and make that the first foot forward onto a new overall culture in Sacramento and to hopefully making the playoffs next season.